Good morning. Let's see how the German foreign policy developed at the beginning of Hitler's regime. And the main objective is to identify and examine the foreign policy steps, the ones that you are doing in your index. Yes. So, what influenced his foreign policy? Remember that one of his aims was to smash the Treaty of Versailles to unite all Germans in one Reich, the Third Reich, and create a 11th round, this space, this vital space that will meant that he will be conquering in a way or invading the Soviet Union, and world conquest is not properly appropriate. As you have seen with Mussolini and now Hitler, foreign policy is determined by the aims and motive of these historical actors, but really they were constrained by historical conditions, yes, and helped or hindered by the contemporary international context. The international context, we have to go backwards to the successes and failures of the League of Nations and on the international treaties. So Hitler foreign aims, remember he was appointed chancellor in 33. You have already um, organized your slides with these at least four clear different aims. Which one? The first one, the most important, that allow him to accomplish all of them was the reverse of the Treaty of Versailles, in with the special objective to unite all Germans, extending the 11th round, this living space, yes, and became a stronger Germany. This necessitated Germany to break the Treaty of Versailles, and let's see what happened with the Geneva Disarmament Conference. Do you remember that was one of the main objectives of the League of Nations? And they tried really very hard. And with this conference, yes, both the Treaty of Versailles and the rules, the covenant of the League of Nations, committed members to disarm. Germany had been a member of the League only, remember, since 1926, and finally was able to sign the Kellogg-Briand Pact in the 28. So he was part of the this honeymoon by the end of the decade. Yet Hitler saw disarmament proposals as unfair. It put Germany in a weaker position compared to its powerful neighbors, Poland and France. Mm. So this Geneva conference was viewed um, by Germany like a problem. Yes, they were able to participate, and what the most important consequence was that in 1922 Germany signed a treaty, the famous Treaty of Rapallo, outside the League of Nations, obviously, with the Soviet Union. And this benefited Germany because it was able to train and improve and rearm in the Soviet Union. Remember that he was forbidden to do it in Germany. And the Soviet Union received a lot of technology. But remember that the Soviet Union was a communist state. So France, England, even the United States, they all wanted to isolate the Soviet Union. And this treaty will be extremely good for Germany and the Soviet Union because will be the first step to establish relations do not being alone and isolated. Yes, Hitler argued that Germany would disarm fully if another nations did the same, and you know that they did not agree to do it. And he also argued that Germany should be allowed to rearm to the same levels as their neighbor. Hmm? Germany withdrew from the conference, yes, of Geneva, and the League of Nations, citing unequal treatment. To add legitimacy to the decision, he called for a public plebiscite, and people voted in favor. The international response was obviously alarmist. Withdrawal from the conference and the League was clear a signal of his intention to rearm Germany, and it broke the recently signed four power pact between Germany, Italy, France, and Britain. Yes, so what was the international response? Here we have the main pictures of the leaders of England, France, and the Soviet Union. Britain's attitude was essentially very sympathetic to Germany's demands. Germany seemed a key ally to stop the Soviet Union, and it was clear that some form of treaty revision or Versailles would be needed to keep Germany happy. Poland was really worried, but Hitler skillfully placated the Poles with a 10-year non aggression pact signed in the 34. Remember that the 1st of September of 1939, the Second World War will start with invasion of Poland. So this treaty will not be um, accomplished. The Soviet Union responded to this potential German Polish alliance by signing alliances with France and Czechoslovakia in the 35. And France itself, fearing rearmament, failed to find support to deal with Germany. The German Polish agreement had weakened France's alliance with Poland itself. So it's been like the new scenario, yes, that you might remember before the First World War, with lots of alliances. And remember that after the 35, the League of Nations affair in Abyssinia, they have to agree with bilateral treaties. Well, what happened with Austria? Yes, the Dollfuss affair. This one was one of the steps and a little failure of Hitler. As he was seen by the public support over his decision to withdraw from disarmament talks, Hitler gambled or agitated for an Anschluss. An Anschluss was there to unite Germany and Austria again, and remember that this was forbidden in the Treaty of Versailles. So in July 34, Austrian Nazis assassinated the Chancellor. Here we can see Dollfuss in an attempt to unite Austria with Germany. But who stopped the Austrian and German Nazis? Where it was Mussolini, fascist Italy. Fearing Germany demands on its northern provinces, moved his army, and Hitler was really scared into backing down. This only served to isolate Germany and strengthen relations between Italy, France, and Britain. Yes. Here you can see a cartoon of Punch, yes, of Dollfuss assassination. But if you've seen the year, it's 1934, before Mussolini invaded Abyssinia. So the relations between England and France were quite good with this little event, but it will be ruined the following year with invasion of Abyssinia. Have that in mind. So another step was the Saar land, no, that it will return to Germany. The coal rich area of the Saar was a German territory given to France after World War I in compensation for the destructions of French mines. It was administered by the League of Nations, and France was allowed to control its economy for 15 years. That was the agreement. Yes? The Treaty of Versailles stipulated that a plebiscite, that means a vote of the plebe, the community of the Tsar, would be held in 1935 to decide which country the people wanted to revert to, if they are going to continue to be a part of France or if they want to go back to Germany. Unsurprisingly, the German majority province voted 90% to return to Germany. This was clearly the first domestic success for Hitler. Yes? So this will take to the inevitable decision. No? If we have in mind his aims, obviously this will be one of the first steps to accomplishment. So, already acknowledged privately on 16th of March 35, Hitler announced to the press that Germany possessed a new air force, the Luftwaffe, in contravention of the Treaty of Versailles. Oh my God. At the same time, he also announced the reintroduction of conscription in order to build an army much larger of the 100,000 men allowed. France and Britain immediately denounced the move but did nothing to discourage Hitler. In response, they signed the short-lived Stresa Front with Italy in April 35, all agreeing to protect the Treaty of Versailles. Remember that we've seen the Stresa Front, yes, in the Abyssinian crisis, with the League of Nations unit. Have in mind also the Anglo-German Naval Agreement. After the breakdown of this Geneva Disarmament Conference, Britain feared that another naval arms race with Germany was imminent. So the naval reductions of the London Naval Conference in 1930 and the Great Depression had left the British Navy facing an economic shortfall. In this context, British admirals were content to see treaties signed with foreign powers to restrict their navies. This would mean Britain didn't have to embark on expensive rearmament if they all stopped to rearm. So, in June 35, the Anglo German Naval Agreement was signed, which enabled Germany to build a fleet 35 of the size of the British Royal Navy. So it cannot be larger than that. Hitler saw this as the beginning of a potential UK German alliance against the Soviet Union. Britain saw this very differently as a way to limit German rearmaments. This is two different clear views and interpretations. The agreement was controversial because it enabled Germany to build a navy bigger than the Treaty of Versailles limitation. It was also seen as a betrayal of the recently signed Stresa Pact. Remember the one of Abyssinia crisis, the one that they are going to respect the Treaty of Versailles? Well, by Italy and France, which would free Italy to act unilaterally in Abyssinia. Mussolini said, well, if UK is not respecting the Treaty of Versailles, why should I? Yes? So the boy who shouldn't grow up, that means here you can see Deutsch, here is Germany, and Britain, and France that is a little bit annoyed. Well, the following step will be the remilitarization of the Rhineland. Yes, remember that it was that piece of land between Germany and France that was not allowed to have militaries, in order to create a buffer zone and for security reasons. So on the 7th of March of 36, Hitler marched took 20,000 troops back into his own land, the Rhineland, which had been demilitarized by the Treaty of Versailles. This was another clear breach of the treaty. Hitler gambled that Britain and France wouldn't react. He said, no, 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 they won't react. The recent invasion of Abyssinia by Mussolini had shown that the League members were unwilling to act. And Hitler calculated that this would boost his popularity domestically. So many in Britain were sympathetic and unwilling to consider war. After all, he was only marching into his own backyard, own territory. France, facing domestic elections, was also unwilling to risk war at this time. Hitler had gambled and war, so this was a success. And the Rhineland, this is the most famous cartoon. Yes, the goose step marching, breaking the Locarno Treaty. Yes, Pax Germanica. Goosey Goosey Gander. This was a famous song. Only through the Rhineland, pray excuse my blunder. Mm. In the meantime, there was another conflict far away in Europe, the Spanish Civil War. The failure of Britain and France to present a united front versus Germany and the hypocritical handling of the Abyssinian crisis had convinced Mussolini to enter into better relations with Germany. This might be my new friend. So these two new friend, this new partnership was cemented, o sea, consolidated, by the cooperation in the Spanish Civil War that was finally won by General Francisco Franco, authoritarian regime in Spain. If he won, no, that he did, Italy and Germany would both have a new fascist ally, and victory would isolate France. So they decided to sign a treaty. Cooperation in the Spanish Civil War resulted in a firm commitment of friendship. So in November 36, a formal alliance was signed. Both recognized each other as sphere of influence, and Italy was in the Mediterranean, Germany in Central and Eastern Europe. Yes? So happy both of them. On the 26th of November, Germany would create an anti-Comintern pact with Japan. Italy would later join in November 37. Here we have the treaty called in Europe in those days Roberto, Rome, Berlin, Tokyo Axis. Yes? Well, what happened with this famous meeting? By the 37, Hitler had transformed Germany from an isolated, weak, and surrounded nation into a rapidly rearming economic powerhouse which had managed to isolate France and encircle the Soviet Union. Germany was helping this by the appeasement policies. This will be studied in depth. Yes, we're going to see pros and cons of this policy held by Britain, especially by Britain and France. Also, the weakness of the League of Nations and the support of Italy. In November the 5th, remember the 5th of November, in 1937, Hitler met with his top generals to discuss and lay out his aims for foreign policy over the next 10 years. So imagine that this meeting was extremely important, yes, because it would design in a way what will happen to Europe and the Second World War. Recorded by Colonel Hosbach 5 days after the meeting, the Hosbach Memorandum, like notes, details Hitler's aim in foreign policy. Confident that Germany's position was now secure, Hitler argued for the need to quickly conquer both Austria and Czechoslovakia, two of France's allies and neighbors, and with German speaking people. So this would remove any chance of France surrounding Germany in opposing alliances, one, and Hitler argues that war with France and Britain was inevitable. Therefore, it was better to strike first before they could rearm by 1943. Yes, stepping stones to glory. Here is, you can see, rearmament, the dancing, and here is what are the steps? Spineless leaders of democracy. What other step would he take? Hmm? So, what do should do after this video? Well, I need you to answer these questions. Yes, you can do it in a doc or in your one of your slides. So the idea is, why was Hitler foreign policy so successful between these few years, 33, 37? Could and should Hitler have been stopped at any point? Consider the pros and cons of each suggestion. And to what extent could Britain be blamed for encouraging Hitler expansionism and revisionism? Are there any parallels between Hitler foreign policy and nations today? Well, this is number 4. Let's do only the first 3 questions. Yes, to in order to verify if the objective was if we met already our learning objectives. Thank you very much. See you next lesson. Escape.